Welcome, my friends and enemies. Glad you are here. I'm your host, High Inquisitor Doman, and I just wanted to let you know that this video should not have to exist. But apparently, it does, because we have some very, very brilliant minds in this world that have a case that is not... It's a terminal case of retardation. Let's give a moment of silence for all the people with the terminal case of retardation. And now for something completely different. We have articles. 5 articles, to be exact. And I am unfortunately forced to go through all 5 of these because retardation exists. So, we will jump into the first one. Now, for those, I guess before we jump into it, the first part you might need to be aware is that there's this thing called AI. I know. Everybody likes it. Everybody hates it. Everybody's everybody. Like, here's something you don't understand, probably. That if you utilize AI in some shape or form, it does not mean, 1, that you have stolen something. You could technically have stolen something, but doesn't mean inherently you stole something. 2, that you didn't put any work and effort into something, because it still takes a lot of time on average to make something out of it, right? You can make slop out of it. You can make something in 3 prompts in 20 seconds. It's just going to look terrible. It's going to be bad. It's not going to be good quality. But if you make something of quality, it usually takes a little bit longer. So if you understand those at least, let's add a third. Just because you use it does not mean whatever you create is entirely comprised of AI concepts and things. Does that make sense? Does that clear up anything? Because apparently we have this weird position in society where the anti-AI tards are not understanding how things operate and whatnot. So we're about to hopefully inform you, those of you who are not aware, and those of you who are the anti-AI tards, let's learn a little bit. Let's do a learnings. So, Baldur's Gate 3 developer Larian defends itself as fans react to generative AI use. I'm not entirely sure we are the ideal target for the level of scorn. So, not to necessarily come across as a Baldur's Gate huge fan, because I am. Larian fan in general. I am a massive fan of Larian. But this isn't because I like Larian. This is because this is retarded. Like, the fact that this is a thing. So we're going to burn through these couple of articles. Like, this one's the longest one, I think, of the 5. But I'm going to burn through it, so try to keep up. If you struggle, knock it down to, like, 0.5. Larian says that nothing AI generated will appear in its games that it does not develop concept art with AI tools. Now, I think that's a misdirect of what they say, but there's an update. Bloomberg journalist Jason Schreier, everything you need to know about how bad this is, has shared a transcript of the relevant bit of his interview with Larian, providing more context about the specific ways the studio has experimented with AI tools for some prototyping tasks and exploration, and comments are roughly in line with Larian's previous comments about generative AI. So that's an update. Larian CEO Sven said earlier this year that Baldur's Gate 3 studio is using generative AI to automate certain prototyping tasks, such as creating mock levels for designers to work with before replacing them with handmade art. The comments didn't attract much notice at the time, but similar remarks in a new Bloomberg interview about Larian's next big RPG, Divinity, have kicked up a storm of complaints, which the studio is now pushing back on. Why would people complain about this? Well, you're about to find out. In Bloomberg's words, Larian has been pushing hard on generative AI, and its developers often use AI tools to explore ideas, flesh out PowerPoint presentations, develop concept art, and write placeholder text. Sven reiterated in the interview that the studio isn't using generative AI to create any of the art, voices, or writing we see in its games. After the interview was published, he also said that pushing hard isn't a correct characterization of Larian's AI policy, and that AI is not being used to develop concept art, in his view, though it is being used in the very early ideation stages. Now, what is an ideation stage? An ideation stage is when you throw out concepts that aren't actually really concepts yet. You're thinking, what if we did something like this or something like this? You're not showing what it would look like in like a minor, how would you say, almost like a early stage of concept. It's just a here's like a rough sketch of an idea. So if I draw something, it's going to look terrible because I can't draw with nothing. But let's say I'm going to draw something down real quick. Here's a castle, here's some clouds, and here's a big old gate and a bunch of people attacking it. What if we had this? Right? That's just an idea. That's an ideation stage. It's an idea and creation mixed together. It's what if we did this? Concept art is more notorious in being used to express something to somebody that is going to be put together, or ideally put together, as an intention. It may change later on, but the idea is it's more of this is what we actually want to do, compared to an ideation, which is we could do this, or we could do this over here, or we could do this over here, and you're not really sure where you're going with it at that time. Now, ideation can also take place in multiple points in the creation of an entire product, because if you're in one particular nation that has a particular architecture style and all that stuff, but then you go to another nation, well, now you have to create a whole bunch of new stuff, so you ideation that stuff until you are satisfied with the concept to put together to make concept for, like concept art, concept music, concept speech patterns, whatever it might be, to make your world better, right? So ideation's like the earliest stage you could have of ideas. I have tons of these. I have literal folders full of ideas for a bunch of stuff that I know will probably never actually work, and I don't have the funds to make them come to reality, even if they were good ideas, right? So everybody does this to some extent. A concept is when you start going more invested into it. So explaining the difference between these two. Hopefully that's clear enough. I know it sounds like they're the same, but they're actually not. The Larian CEO has previously rejected the idea that generative AI tools can replace creative workers, saying in April, for instance, that when the studio needed more concept art, it hired 15 more concept artists. But word of Larian's generative AI use has been taken as a betrayal by some fans, who've taken to social media to express their displeasure, and an ex-employee has urged the company to reconsider its stance. Now, I would like to point out the ex-employee thing. It sounds like they're trying to get clout off of, like, look at me, I worked on Baldur's Gate 3 or whatever, right? Like, I worked on Larian games. Artist Selena Tobin, don't care who you are, who's credited as a junior environment artist on Baldur's Gate 3. Said on Blue Sky, that's everything else you need to know about the person, that she loved working at Larian until AI. Because for artists, I know this for artists and musicians particularly, the word AI, or I should say the letters AI, are particularly disgusting to them. Because they don't understand how it's done, and they feel it's belittling whatever they do. Or they think it's stealing jobs. Well, here's the fun fact. If somebody has a limited budget, and I'm not talking about Larry, I'm just talking in general. If somebody has a limited budget of like $0 or maybe $20, and they need something done tomorrow, if I go to any artist and say, can you get this for me for $20 by tomorrow? They're going to laugh at you. Even if you have friends, they're going to be like, sorry, I mean, that's at least $100, and that's at least going to take me a week. You're like, but I need it tomorrow, and I don't have $100. Well, you'll need to find an artist who can afford that. Okay. Then you go to AI, you type in everything you want, it puts out exactly what you're looking for. That somehow stole a job. It's like, well, it didn't steal a job. I could never afford to pay you to begin with. Nobody would have been affected by this because nobody else could have hired this. The only difference is that they want you to not make the creation to begin with, because if you don't make the creation, they don't have competition. Because the competition they're in competition with when it comes to AI is the costs and the time. So if you don't do AI, you have like a week turnaround, a couple day turnaround, depending on what the project is, and it costs a chunk of money. Or you pay whatever you have to pay for AI, and in some situations, actually most situations, it's free, and you don't have to necessarily pay anything. And you get your product in the time period that you want. Sometimes a couple hours, sometimes a couple days, depending upon what you're doing and how much touch-up you're doing. But if you're getting what you need, at least for like, say, a concept art or something, it's not that big of a deal, and you can turn it around later on with something a little bit nicer that's more updated or whatever. Which of those two is going to win when you need something today or tomorrow, when somebody else is like, well, I can get this to you back in 7 days and for $100 as opposed to, $20? It's like, well, you should just not make the thing because I'm uncomfortable that you competed with me on something I was never going to do for you. So it's just a silly concept in that regard. But also for like musicians, they're like, it's not real music. It's like, oh yes, we didn't sit there and put lyrics. We didn't program stuff, whatever. And I get the anti-AI retards are going to be in the freaking chat or in the comment section going on about this. I get it. You don't like it, but you're not using reason and logic to get to your point. You think that because you program music, it's not really music. Like, well, you didn't program it. The AI programmed it. Who programmed the AI to program the music? Somebody had to do it. But what if you, as for a band, say like, I have this beat stuck in my head, but I don't know how to explain it to you. So you go in AI and then you like punch in some stuff and say, I'm thinking something like this. And you do it like 50 times because you're not fully narrowing it down until you hit that one magical spot and it's like, oh wow, that's the beat I was thinking about. And then you go take it to your friends and say, I like this beat. Let's make this beat in real life. Let's get together the band. We'll sit down, let the music masterminds work their magic, and then bam, you guys made your own music. You just had somewhere to start with to make your music. But even if you wanted to make all the music because you don't have a band to play with, you don't have musicians you can hire, and even if you had musicians to hire, you didn't have the money to hire the musicians because there's this thing called a money cap. Like, it's, you can only afford so much and somebody's always above that. So unless you can find somebody who's within affordable range, you probably aren't going to be able to make your music. And if that's a problem to you, well, musicians don't care because guess what? I get to make whatever I want to make because I'm a musician, but you don't get to make what you want to make because you're creative, but you don't have the ability to do it yourself. That's just some elitist BS. Like, just because you make your music in AI doesn't mean it's good, and it doesn't mean that people should like it or have to like it. But what it does mean is that they can't just not let you make it. That's not how that works. So those are the two anti-AI targets that exist, right? So coming up with some ideas for your job or your goals is not the same thing. So reconsider and change your directions like yesterday, wrote Tobin. Show your employees some respect. They are world-class and do not need AI assistants to come up with amazing ideas. Well, where were the ideas? If they had come up with them, you wouldn't need the AI. They used AI because they wanted to come up with it. I swear, some people are just naturally dumber than other people, and this apparently is one of them. Maybe she can draw, but she can't think. So, if you have this be a thing, right? So, your employees need respect. Well, you're paying them, and allegedly they're having a grand old time working for this company. They're world class. Well, that's not necessarily true. That's you sucking up to them. But maybe they are. Maybe they aren't. But that's subjective. And they do not need AI assistants to come up with amazing ideas. Well, they don't. But did they? And if they didn't, why didn't they? They're world class. This should be easy peasy. Maybe they had restraints. Maybe they had, a baby in the family. Maybe they had a death in the family. Maybe something came up and they forgot their Pop-Tart at the store. So they had to go back and get it. So they didn't have time to insert their grand master plan. We don't know what the specific topic is about, but this person apparently thinks they know everything. So I'd like to point out they're kind of stupid. Others are speculating on the likelihood of AI-generated placeholders slipping into Divinity, a phenomenon we've seen several times in other games, including this year's Game Awards winner Claire Obscure. Allegedly. We'll get to that later. On X, Larian publishing director Michael Deuce responded to the criticism, contrasting Larian's use of the technology with that of less scrupulous developers who would directly feature AI-made assets in their games or use the technology as an excuse for layoffs. Well, yeah, because people say that's the thing. They're stealing our gerbs, or they're AI made assets. They're not a person's made assets. So they're stealing art, and they're firing people and blah blah blah. It's just like, oh my god. Just because one person does it doesn't mean every other person is doing it. I shouldn't have to explain this to people, but apparently I do. So here I am. Back in April, our stance on AI and workflows was established, so I'm not sure why this is coming up now as a controversy, the timing of it, wrote Deuce. We continue to hire people across all departments, not trim. Our goal is to make life better for individual workflows, not worse. We want to make better games that don't feature AI content in them, where much of the industry will feature AI content. We want everyone to have fulfilling creative roles and keep their jobs in an industry of mass layoffs. In other words, I'm not entirely sure we are the ideal target for the level of scorn. So, okay. People are attacking them when they're actually hiring people, not firing them or laying them off. When I guess they themselves as a studio have the power to do so. Because if a publisher is over them, like Wizards of the Coast or something, or somebody who owns the license or the IP and they want them to do it a specific way, they might have control of who they fire and who they hire, or hire and fire, whatever. So we can't say they are definitively doing this. We can't say they're not definitively doing this. But what we can say is that they're saying we hire people, we don't fire people because of this particular topic. I mean, I'm sure they still fire people, and I'm sure people still leave the company. But they're not doing it because of AI. They're not doing it because they want to trim down. They're doing it because something didn't work out with them. They're criminal, whatever the case might be. Normal firing reasons, right? They're just dicks. They don't get along with people, whatever the case might be. An exasperated sounding Sven also elaborated on the studio's generative AI use on X, denying that pushing hard characterization and saying that the AI tools are used for ideation and rough composition, but not beyond that. It's pre-concept is all it is. Guys, we're not pushing hard for or replacing concept artists with AI, Sven wrote. We have a team of 72 artists, of which 23 are concept artists, and we are hiring more. The art they create is original, and I'm very proud of what they do. I was asked explicitly about concept art and our use of Gen AI. I answered that we use it to explore things. I didn't say we use it to develop concept art. The artists do that, and they are indeed world-class artists. Again, subjective, but I would tend to believe him, and I would tend to lean into it because Larian has done some phenomenal stuff. So I can believe it, and I can see it. So that's not a problem to me. We use AI tools to explore references just like we use Google in art books. At the very early ideation stages, we use it as a rough outline for composition, which we replace with original concept art. There is no comparison. This should be it, guys. This should be one and done. Duh. But apparently, that's not the case. Larian boss pointed to the GameSpot interview from April for further elaboration and added that the studio has hired creatives for their talent, not for their ability to do what a machine suggests, but allows them to experiment with these tools to make their lives easier. And it's literally all it is that you have AI, and you take this AI, and you're like, maybe we could throw out some things so that we can then go to the artist and say, this is a cool, interesting idea. Can you elaborate on it with some concept art and then maybe eventually some actual art in the game? And then they say yes or no, or that's not possible. Yes, it is possible. Whatever they could say. And that's literally it. We'll switch to a different article. Whoop. Apparently it wasn't where I wanted to be. Larian CEO responds to Divinity Gen AI backlash. We are neither releasing the game with any AI components, nor are we looking at trimming down teams to replace them with AI. AI is something we are constantly discussing internally through the lens of making everyone's day better, not worse. This morning, the news broke that Larian Studios, developer of Baldur's Gate 3 and the upcoming just-announced Divinity, is apparently using generative AI behind the scenes for things like concept art and placeholder text. The backlash has been swift and loud from the gaming community, only retards, And now Larian founder and game director Sven is responding to clarify his remarks, affirming that Larian is neither releasing the game with any AI components, nor are we looking at trimming down teams to replace them with AI, and that AI is something we are constantly discussing internally through the lens of making everyone's working day better, not worse. The original news came from a Bloomberg interview, which was dumb, with Sven, and in it, Sven admits that Larian is pushing hard, Bloomberg's phrasing, on generative AI, even though it hasn't led to big gains in efficiency. Specifically, the studio is using the technology to explore ideas, flesh out PowerPoint presentations, develop concept art, and write placeholder text. Again, Bloomberg's phrasing. Now, here's the funny part. Let's say they're using it to explore ideas. Who cares? Who freaking cares? It's not the end result. Lots can change. Lots of human hands or human minds are going to be touching it and playing with that idea before it ever gets anywhere near a full realized product. So if you have a problem with the AI because it's just AI, you're kind of mentally retarded. Not going to lie. And if anything, that's insulting to people who are mentally retarded. So if you're using it to flesh out PowerPoint presentations, who cares? Just because AI exists and it's used and you don't like that doesn't mean it is a crime to use it, or that, oh, they use this in a boardroom. It didn't even go into the actual product. And you're going to throw a fit about it? Maybe, just maybe, if they used an actual AI stuff in the actual game, you might have an actual argument. Even then, I would still say it's stupid that you're making the argument, because if that's what they want to do, that's fine. The fact that you don't like it, well, you're going to buy it or not? If you're not going to buy it, then piss off. If you're going to buy it, don't complain about it. Like, those are your options. Buy it and play it and enjoy it for what it is, or piss off. Like, everything else is irrelevant. Developing concept art and write placeholder text. Placeholder text, guys. YouTube AI is the freaking placeholder text on videos. It makes the transcripts. AI will do the same thing, but it's a problem if it's AI. But YouTube, who's using a form of AI to do so, that's not bad. We don't care. Get out of here. Concept art, who cares? It's not the finalized product. Sven reassures that there won't be any AI-generated content in the final version of Divinity. Everything is human actors. We're writing everything ourselves. But it sounds like the approach isn't going over smoothly with everyone. Bloomberg's piece acknowledges that some internally at Larian have pushed back, though Sven says, I think at this point everyone at the company is more or less okay with the way we're using it. I mean, if they're told to do it and they're paid to do it, then that should be that. It shouldn't be that difficult. But the news hasn't gone over super well with the community, though. On Blue Sky, nobody cares. Larian is being lambasted by a number of individuals that don't matter. Across the game development community, that's not really a game development community. They're just fraudulence, including some former Larian employees. Consider my feedback. I loved working at LarianStudios.com until AI, writes a former Larian environment artist that nobody cares about. Reconsider and change your direction like yesterday. Show your employees some respect. They are world-class and do not need AI assistants to come up with amazing ideas. And yet here we are with them not making those amazing ideas because the AI got to it before them. Divinity and Baldur's Gate 3 communities have somewhat more divided reaction, with some defending its use for concepting, though there's still a significant amount of backlash. That significant is very subjective. And never underestimate the volume of stupid people in existence and how stupid they can be. A few commenters have pointed out that games such as The Alters suffered from significant fan anger over discovered generative AI use, but are willing to forgive Larian for the same offense. Because Larian hasn't done it. Is that a difficult concept for people? If Larian hasn't done it, why would you not forgive them for not doing the thing that they didn't do? I'm sorry. I tried to reduce my intelligence for this, and it was very difficult to the point where I couldn't do it. I literally couldn't reduce my brain cells for this. I'm pretty much anti-Gen AI in creative fields, but now that sounds like a reasonable usage to me. The only thing that bugs me here is that the use of concept art. That poses an ethical copyright issue. No, it doesn't. AI can literally generate one object from like 3 billion different things to generate it. Is it an ethical copyright issue if I draw a stone block? Well, somebody somewhere has a stone block, therefore it's clearly ethical copyright issues. Or it's a block made of stone. It's only ethical copyright if you're taking an existing character and literally copy pasting them in every way possible and claiming it's your own. That's where you're going to have problems. That's not what they're doing. They're saying, hey, look at this. Would it be ethical copyright issue if they didn't use AI and they used an actual concept artist to do it? Is it now an actual, like, it's okay to do? It's not ethical copyright issues anymore? Like, get the frick out of here. It also hampers creativity. No, it doesn't. Because you didn't have that creativity to begin with. Otherwise, you would have had the idea first. And you take this rough, like literally a roughshod idea that came out of flipping nowhere and said, you know what? We can build this better than the AI. And then they go and build it better than the AI. That's not hampering creativity. That's promoting it. Can it hamper creativity? Well, if you have somebody who's lazy and stupid, sure. But that has nothing to do with the actual creativity just seeping from your brain because AI was used to make a sketch. That's ridiculous. Which is a serendipitous process which the idea developed as concept art are essential. Maybe if you're limited in your ability to be creative, sure, but not everybody's like that. Love how this article proved Gen AI is garbage. They didn't do that. Pushing hard for it yet hasn't actually improved workflow. Pushed back by people in the company, but executives are like, no one likes it now because they will lose their jobs if they don't. So disappointing from Sven. How about you shove off? Disappointed in Larian Studios. Disappointed in Larian using generative AI during development, which you obviously didn't read or anything. I don't personally have a dog in this fight because I'm not a developer, and what do I know about workflow? But it's very interesting to see the relatively tame take from Reddit on Gen AI use when it's coming from a beloved studio on the site versus the plethora of other devs and publishers who share the same exact sentiment, yet get raked over the coals for it. It's not the same exact thing when they're doing entirely different things. That's pretty obvious. I can't help but imagine what this thread would look like if it was coming from anyone other than Sven. Lol. Edit. Hey, thanks for deleting this post while leaving up other two Larian-related threads with positive headlines, mods. A little subtlety would be appreciated here. This way you don't go on Reddit. Reddit, like, back in the olden days when I got on Reddit and I actually tried to find stuff or comment on something, I'd always get hit with, like, the auto AI mod, ironically, or the bot. Or the actual mods would take it down and say, this doesn't follow the rules. And I'm like, I've literally went through the checklist, check block, whatever, of all the things you're asking me to do to put this thing together, and it's not working because you keep taking it down. How am I supposed to ask a question or make a statement or anything if everything I do is going to be taken off? So just don't use Reddit. That's to solve the problem right there. Just like you are not a real musician if you use AI to produce music. I mean, where did the idea and the concept for the music come from to put into AI? Well, the AI didn't just make it literally out of thin air. They have to run off of something. And if it did run off of nothing, then yeah, you would be correct. But if somebody actually puts in, like, I want this kind of a beat at this kind of speed, and I want this kind of vocals, here's the lyrics, here's this, that, you're putting a lot of things into it. I want this particular type of sound for the guitar, I want these kind of pedals being used, I want this, blah, 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 blah. If you're going through all this work to build something, you just don't have an actual thing. It's like, well, you didn't make music. Well, you're a freaking person who just sits in your garage playing on your guitar all day. You're not freaking making music because blah. Like, that's how stupid the argument comes across. Although I would argue somebody puts actual effort into it versus somebody just smoking lots of freaking copium and coming out of here saying, hey, you know what? I don't think you're actually making music because I'm a guitarist musician. It's not where you're going to go. Like, the AI person has more effort being put into it than just somebody playing guitar because they can strum a guitar. Doesn't mean the music they're making is any good. Doesn't mean anything. Doesn't even mean it's real music because it has to have beats, harmonization, etc., etc., etc. So if you're missing those types of things, you're not a real musician by definition. Yeah. You're not a real artist if you use AI to produce art. That would depend. Are you doing any touching up on it? Again, we rehash this. They don't know the difference between freaking actual effort and not effort. Not effort, sure. Because the person's putting in as little effort as possible to try to get as maximum as they can, but maximum's never going to come out of the situation because there's nothing to maximize because they're not being specific about something. It's never going to become a masterpiece. It's never going to become a quality content because they're not putting effort into it. The people who put effort into it, who, like for art sense, would go into it and spend a couple hours touching it up with Photoshop. Guess what? Photoshop uses AI. So, like, what are you on? I cannot wait for the stupid bubble to burst. This is beyond disappointing. Well, you can burst first. Your bubble's just way worse than this. Then, because of this, Sven issued IGN a lengthy follow-up response. We've been continuously increasing our pool of concept artists, writers, and storytellers, are actively putting together writer rooms, casting and recording performances from actors and hiring translators. Since concept art is being called out explicitly, we have 23 concept artists and have job openings for more. These artists are creating concept art day in and day out for ideation and production use. Everything we do is incremental and aimed at having people spend more time creating. Any ML tool used well is additive to a creative team or individual's workflow, not a replacement for their skill or craft. We are researching and understanding the cutting edge of ML as a tool set for, I think it's machine learning, but for a tool set for creative to use and see how it can make their day-to-day lives easier and which will let us make better games. We are neither releasing a game with any AI components, nor are we looking at trimming down teams to replace them with AI. While I understand it is subject that invokes a lot of emotion, it's something we are constantly discussing internally through the lens of making everyone's workday better, not worse. And then Sven followed up with, we're not pushing hard or replacing concept art. We have Team 72. We already know about that stuff. We covered all that stuff too prior to this. The discussion comes amid a slate of interviews with Sven following the announcement of Larian's next game, Divinity, at the Game Awards last week. We had our own interview with Sven, which you can read, blah, 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 all that jazz. So let's go for number 3. Larian publishing lead Divinity dev is not your ideal target for AI outrage. Divinity and Baldur's Gate 3 dev, Larian wants to make better games that don't feature AI content in them, but backs developers' use of the tech. Because there's a distinctive difference, and people apparently are too stupid to realize this. And a few days after Divinity's reveal, the Game Awards, there was little else but excitement and buzz around Larian Studios. Baldur's Gate 3 is one of the best RPGs ever made, but Divinity is set to take things to a whole nother level. However, in the last 24 hours or so, things have descended into criticism following comments from the Larian CEO, Sven, about the studio's use of AI. Following the publication of his comments, Sven insists that we're not pushing hard or replacing concept artists, blah, 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 blah. And while that's his final say on the matter, director of publishing Michael Cromwell Deuce, whatever, has been on firefighting duty defending the way in which Larian lets employees use AI and stating that he's not entirely sure we are the ideal target for the level of scorn. There have been some pretty high-profile AI controversies this year, ranging from companies like Krafton going all in on the technology and making it the core of their business to the likes of Embark Studios using it for voice line generation and arc raiders. Well, yeah, because they're doing it for AI, like NPC characters that are already being operated by robots because they're programmed. And they're just giving them lines so they don't seem like they're terrible NPCs. Because you're not going to hire a bazillion different people to do voice acting for all the different NPCs that wander around and do stuff. It's not that big of a deal. It's generated both healthy criticism and a lot of unhealthy outrage as a section of the gaming community looks to torch any studio using AI, generative or not, in any capacity. Now Divinity and Larian are the latest to get caught up. Well, because people are stupid. And yeah, they're going to talk about the Bloomberg article, blah, 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 blah. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. The AI part of developing concept art here is literally replacing reference searching, he says in one reply to a critical fan. Instead of searching books Google, you generate an example. I think the misunderstanding is that people think develop means paint. Countering claims that AI adoption will make Larian employees unhappy, Dowse acknowledges that in a village of hundreds of developers, some will disagree. However, if there was some mass dissent or mandated nefarious workflow, it would all fall apart. You don't make a 97 rated game, Baldur's Gate 3, without everyone broadly being on the same page. Several of Dowse's replies also make it clear that the staff can use AI only if they want to and feel like it improves their quality of life, and it's not being pursued or as something that will replace human developers. So you guys proudly use AI for concept art and such? Congratulations. How do so many stupid people exist? Don't answer that. I know the answer. It's And another post, Deuce summarizes Larian Studio and stance and aims to redirect those unhappy with generative AI used in video games elsewhere. We want to make better games that don't feature AI content. I mean, there's much of the industry will feature, keyword being feature AI content. We want everyone to have fulfilling creative roles and keep their jobs in an industry of mass layoffs. In other words, we're not entirely sure we're the ideal target for level scoring. Personally, I don't think stuffing AI generated assets in the final version of the game will ever benefit it. They're not doing that. And even using it as an inspiration tool in early stage of development could result in an inferior product if not used carefully. They already said they're not doing that. Something Larian definitely needs to take care over. They're not doing that. If this is its now approach, still not doing it. However, I'm also cognizant that AI has its uses for getting certain tasks done more quickly, and I can accept its usage in this context, so long as it doesn't replace talented human. They're not doing that. That level of nuance, however, rarely exists when it comes to the good old comment section, and that's something Larian just found out the hard way. Yes, stupid people exist. All right. Number 4. Divinity producer says using AI for unimportant lines removes the chance to support performers such as Baldur's Gate 3 star Jennifer English. Every VA starts small. Voice actors progressively level up through these smaller roles. Discussion around generative AI continues to permeate the industry, and Burhan Zamri, an associate producer at Divinity and Baldur's Gate 3 developer Larian Studios, is making it clear he's firmly against the using the tech in voiceover work. In a post on Twitter, he explains exactly why it's important that smaller roles go to human beings rather than machines. We lose the chance to support performers like Jennifer English if we let Gen AI replace human acting. Now, ironically, Jennifer English is not a small performer because she does like really good work and she's been in some real bangers. So that doesn't really make sense to me. He's sharing a clip of English voicing a meager treasure chest in Divinity Original Sin 2. Every VA starts small and progressively levels up to take on bigger challenges. Fair enough. I think that's absolutely fine. Hire people. No problem with that. But if somebody was to say, I have this one character over here, he's got one line, and 99.9% of the players aren't going to even find this person or thing to even hear the line, you can use generative AI for that. It's not the end of the world. If most of your entire game is just real people doing real voices, if you have 1 million characters and you give one person per character, you're going to hire 1 million voice actors? That would be stupid. Well, you could do the Skyrim route where you have every single guard voiced by the same person. I used to be an adventurer like you once until I took an arrow to the knee. I'm pretty sure they used 2 or 3 voice actors for basically all the guards in Skyrim that were not, part of the Empire. Maybe even some of the Empires. They used a lot of the same people over and over again, which kind of breaks the immersion a little bit. But if you were to say, we're going to use everybody, or maybe you use an AI voiceover, but you have the actual person acted out, but the voice changes. Well, guess what? Voice changing does the same thing as AI does. It's stupid. The scene he shares is charming back and forth where the protagonist must unlock a repository that requires a password. It's a small conversation that brings plenty of flavor to the general scene, and in a big game, or a game as big as Original Sin 2, it's these moments that accentuate the journey. We lose the chance to support performers like Jennifer English if we let blah, blah. Yeah, sure, cool. When we let AI do the unimportant lines, BS by the way, people with potential never get to shine, he adds. Zamri is making a crucial point here. Minor jobs and grunt work are important in improving stepping stones into gaming development and other discipline for that matter. Now, I'd like to point out, it's easy to say that when you have a massive successful publishing business and game development business like Larian. But when Larian was first starting out, they wouldn't be able to hire all those small-time voice actors that are brand new to the gig. Why? Because they don't have money. Unless they had somebody come in and just say, here's $100 million, I'm backing you as your first-time studio. That doesn't happen. Not without having veterans on that list that have quite the back catalog under their belt. That's just not happening. It just will not happen. Not to mention good reputation and all that jazz. So, what if some small person's like, well, I can make this really fantastic game, but because I have no money to pay a bunch of other people, I can only pay a handful of people to do voice acting. I can only pay a handful of people to do some artwork, and it's going to be very rare and scarce. Scarce. What would be the wrong with that? They don't have the means to do what you want. But people would rather they just don't make games. They just don't do it. They just cease existing as a creative mind that just can't put things into play because they don't have money. That freaking sounds elitist as all get out. If you don't like their game, that's fine. If you support their game, maybe their next game they can actually afford to. But if they continue after they have money to do it just to make more money, then you could choose to not support them. That's perfectly fine. You have choices as a consumer. But to tell somebody they shouldn't be able to be creative or be able to create a vision of theirs or be creative in general because they're not going to hire somebody to do it or they're not going to do it themselves in a way that you approve of is just kind of elitist BS. There are opportunities for people to get valuable experience within larger infrastructures without the pressure or requirements of more substantial rules. I agree. But not everybody does this. And also voice actors are notoriously underpaid. So yeah, I mean, is it we need to hire people that we're not going to pay very much to do these roles because they're human, but also we're not going to pay them very much because they're human but they're just voice actors. Which of it is it? I'm not saying they're not paying their voice actors very well. They probably are paying them pretty well considering how successful they've been. But how much are people getting paid on average to voice act versus how much effort they're putting into it? They take the role because that's what they do. They're voice actors. But they're not necessarily getting compensated fairly, but that's not the problem here, apparently. Some of the conversation around the incorporation of AI has centered on it using it for less noteworthy tasks nobody likes, but those are the way to teach up-and-comers. Potentially. If you put out a thing that says, we're hiring for this thing, but nobody responds for 6 months, you can just do it AI. Because you can't afford to pay somebody $20 a month to do this excruciatingly annoying job that nobody wants to do. Just have AI do it. It's not a big deal. They're making a mountain out of a molehill. English is prolific now after voicing Shadowheart in Baldur's Gate 3, Male in Clair Obscur Expedition 33, Latina in Elden Ring. But right at the bottom of her credits, you'll find Divinity Original Sin 2, a game people are flocking back to in light of the announcement of a new Divinity from Larian. Well, yeah, it's also a phenomenal game. Duh. And prior to Baldur's Gate 3, I would say it was one of the best RPG games in existence up to that point. Ironically, the same company. She started somewhere, throwing a small riddle at the player, and others could get the same chance. I totally agree. Not every company's going to give people that chance. They might stick to an elite few voice actors, and all those small up-and-comers don't get their shot. Or they take advantage of small up-and-comers. I'm not saying Larian is doing this, but a development team might take advantage of small up-and-comers and turn them into people who do a lot of work for very little. It's very possible. It happens. Business exists that way. So why isn't that being talked about? And for the final article, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 producer confirms generative AI use in Game of the Year winner. Something tells me it's not going to be what they're thinking. Some viewers were scanning trailers at the Game Awards for any sign of generative AI. However, even Clair Obscur Expedition 33, which won 9 awards, used AI tools in some capacity. Oh no, in some capacity. Oh no. Evidence that Sandfall's interactive Clair Obscur Expedition 33 employed generative AI already existed. Still, the studio hadn't offered clarification on how much it relied on the tools. Following the game's dominance at Game Awards, some fans were discovering an overlooked interview for the first time. Producer Francois Melius told the El País magazine that Clair Obscur uses some AI, but not much. That's a lot of context, right? Maybe people are taking it out of context. Gene Park shared the comments on social media, reigniting the debate surrounding the technology. Melius also revealed how recent advancements allowed the studio to do things that were unthinkable in a short time ago. What influence does AI have on Clair Obscur? Soon after the Clair Obscur Expedition 33 release date, gamers discovered it had launched with placeholder AI images. Developers often implement this temporary artwork for artists to create custom files to replace it. The posters were quickly swapped, but the move sparked speculation about how else Sandfall may have capitalized on generative AI tools. They literally just stated, we put this aside for art, like a placeholder for art, and then we have an actual artist make the file, and then they swap it out to put the actual file in the game. What more do you want? Are you not entertained? Like, seriously. If they just had AI art and AI art and AI art and AI art, and they were ripping people off of their art and not paying out what they're supposed to and breaking the law and a whole bunch of other things, then I'd say you'd have an argument. You would have an argument to say, we have a placeholder AI image. It's a placeholder. It's not meant to be there long term. It's supposed to be there until they put the other thing in. And it's a custom file, which means it's something somebody made. And it's not AI in this situation. So if it's not AI, because if that was the case, why have the placeholder AI? Just have the actual AI. It's an actual art. So you can take that actual art, put it in there, and take out the AI placeholder. I mean, if I go into a game that I'm making and I put placeholders of brown square boxes everywhere, and like, these are placeholders, I bet AI made these. Or you'd be like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's not AI. It's like, well, would it be a big deal if it was AI? Well, yes, because AI is stealing. Oh, so big pictures of brown squares, box thingies, that's stealing. Who's claiming this as their artwork? And like 700 people like me. No, it's a freaking brown square box. It could be literally anybody's. You cannot prove it's yours in any shape or form or capacity, which means you can't claim it. So, assuming that, what's the difference? It's a placeholder. You could put a middle finger and just be like, that's an image. It's a middle finger. Whoopity-doo. Is it real art? No, it's a picture of just a thing. I take a picture of my headphones, take a picture of my keyboard. It's just a thing. It's not art. It's just a thing. It's sitting there so I can go back and say, every time I see this picture of a keyboard or a picture of my headphones, headsets, whatever, I know that I need to put this file in that spot. That's what it's for. Expedition 33 team freely admitted using AI and just won the most awards ever in Game Awards history. Because you're retarded, Gene Park. You are absolutely definitively retarded. I can't say this any other way. They admitted to using AI. How did they use AI? You don't have a freaking idea. But even if you did, let's say you knew about the placeholder AI images, whoopity-doo! It's like slapping a sticky note onto a spot and saying, put something else here. That's all it's for. Whoopity-doo! Optimizing resources. We use some AI, but not much. Producer of Claire Obscure tells LP. The key is what we want to be very clear about what we wanted to do and to invest in it. And of course, technology has allowed us to do things that were unthinkable a short time ago. Unreal Engine 5 tools and assets have been very important in improving the graphics gameplay to the max. Okay. So, this gives me vibes. I can't believe I just said that. This gives me the feeling that they tried to use AI, or they did use AI, potentially, to create a bunch of things that, like, well, we could do this, and then they put together basically a skeleton of a part of a concept, or a part of a plan, or a part of a level, part of bosses, whatever. And then they're like, would that work? No. Okay, scrap it, try over again. If they didn't do this with AI, and they did this with real people, now they're just literally burning money. They're not coming up with anything. They're turning into Hollywood and then not coming up with a script. And then boom, now they've burnt through $100 million before they even put pen to paper. So it makes logical sense to use AI placeholders to run through an idea and say, would this be feasible? Would this be reasonable? Is this something we can actually implement? Is this something we can actually do? And then the developers get together and have their little dance party and say, yes, we can do this, or no, we can't do this, or maybe we possibly could if we have some additional resources. That's not the same thing as we're just going to be lazy and throw things together. No, they have a budget. They have a very small budget. Larian CEO confirms that studio is using generative AI to explore ideas, flesh out PowerPoint presentations, develop concept art, and write placeholder text. He says there won't be any AI-generated content in Divinity. Everything is human actors. We're writing everything. Because there's not going to be AI in the game when it's finished. It's all going to be man-made. But you used AI to make this stuff. They made very explicit prompts to make a very explicit concept that was explicitly put together by an explicit human being. Context is key. Melissa's comments suggest that AI only had a limited influence on the project. Skeptics haven't found anything suspicious with the character designs or voiceovers because they're not going to find it, which reviews have praised. Nevertheless, after winning Game of the Year, there's more attention than ever on the title. Well, yeah, because it's better than that dumpster fire we had in 2020. Reactions have been mixed, with extreme responses calling for the disqualification of Claire Obscure. Well, yeah, because they're sore losers. Other gamers appreciate how technology can help smaller studios compete against big budget titles. Thank you. Finally, people that have a brain cell that rubs together with itself to produce more brain cells into a variety of brain power that can generate an entire world of creativity. Sandfall's less than $10 million budget paled in comparison to AAA RPGs like Final Fantasy Remix. Do we know why this is a big deal? Because somebody goes out there and blows $400 million on something and makes slop. Like, we're talking AI level of slop. And if you're making AI level of slop, you can't be considered a world-class anything. You're just suck at your job. Well, we had 18,000 employees. Then they all suck at their job because you made slop, you made trash, you didn't make something that could even be compared or nominated for good stuff. And even if you nominated it, it shouldn't win because it's trash. Because you're lazy. You can be lazy without AI. You can be creatively defunct without AI. People seem to think if you get AI, everything else goes down the drain. And maybe it could. It's possible. But it can do the same thing without AI. So having somebody be like, well, we can make this for $10 million instead of $100 million. So we can pay 1/10 of the price if we did with AI for certain basic functions that aren't going to be finalized in the game. That's fine. Like, oh my gosh, this should not be a big deal. The AI debate won't be settled anytime soon. Well, it should be, because people are pretty stupid about it, and it's pretty obvious in a lot of things. But if there were any areas that were not very clear, that's what they should be focusing on, not the fact that somebody used AI. Ironically, as reported by Games Radar, the voice actress for Male condemned the increasing reliance on generative AI. Despite Jennifer English's warnings, major publishers like Capcom aren't concerned. Resident Evil games could use Imogen to produce background objects, saving artists time. Well, if they're just making a freaking, asset file, then whoopity-doo. It's the same as somebody else going out there and making an asset file manually. It's just I'm doing it faster, and it's going to look different. Okay. Again, box. I make a box. They have a box in their asset file. You can go find manually made by human hands, digitally speaking, of course, asset files where they all have boxes in them. Are they stealing from each other because they have boxes? Or are they stealing from them because it took a quarter of the time to make than what they did? It's a tool, guys. And if you don't like the tool, then don't use it. But don't be mad if other people do use it, because the smart people are using it and learning how to use it, even though they have the actual talent, and they can still work with that talent and make something even better in a quicker time period, because that's how that works. But I do think it's funny that Jennifer English is coming out like when she got her literal job, because she literally was a small voice actress and they wanted to give her a shot, and they're still giving her a shot. I don't seem to understand why people think that because they get a little popular. Don't get me wrong, I like her, but just because of that, now they're just gonna be like, my opinion matters more than everybody else's. It's just weird. It's weird. Weird. Larian, makers of Baldur's Gate 3, also came under fire for pledging to ask artificial intelligence to brainstorm ideas for Divinity. That's literally what brainstorming is. If I brainstorm with a whole bunch of people in a room, odds are it's going to get about the same quality of stuff as AI, because AI has a much bigger pool and a much faster brain than us humans. That's just how that works. Doesn't mean that every idea that comes out of there, just even if it's smart, is a good idea or should be implemented. It's just a potentially good idea. But also AI has a lot of other things in it that is still being tweaked on, so it's not like you need to take it at its face value every single time. Like, come on, guys. Most games are unlikely to depend entirely on machine-generated assets in the near future. Even so, critics worry that an industry celebrates clear obscure, other studios won't be as reluctant to replace their human creators. Then don't buy their game. Don't support them, if that's how you feel about it. But if your idea is they used AI, therefore it bad, then you're stupid. I'm sorry. That's not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Sorry about this. Not about this. It's not the end of the world if somebody uses AI any more than if they used an automated program that was not AI to build something that they needed for their game. It's just software. It's just a program. That's all it is. You don't have to like it, but being against it just because you don't like it with no other actual valid reason is stupid. If you're like, it's stealing from people, and it's shown that they actually don't steal from people, then that's a pointless argument to hold. Don't hold that position. That's just stupid. If somebody is stealing from it and you have actual evidence of it, then they're probably going to get taken to court. They're going to probably lose, and then that person's going to get a massive payout. Congratulations. It's a win-win. Like, you don't have to defend AI just because, it's AI. We don't have to do that. But treating everybody the same way as somebody who does do something bad is kind of stupid. I don't say stupid, retarded, dumb, all that kind of stuff, other variations of it a lot. But these articles are really pushing that concept that people are just that stupid. I did it again. So the overall point is that people are stupid. I'm just kidding. The point is that utilizing something, like utilize a phone, right? I utilize a phone to call somebody. Well, why didn't you write them a letter? Well, I could, or I could just done, or I could push a button and say, hey, AI bot on my phone, do this or send this text to this person and here's what I want you to say, and then it blips it into them instantly. Well, it got there faster than the post office did. Does that mean we're taking the post officers' gerbs? Gosh dang it, I keep hitting this. The answer is no. They're union. They're having work no matter what. Like, no matter what you do, that you're gonna get work, even though I'm not particularly fond of it. But the point being is that just because you make up the scenario in your head doesn't mean that's how it plays out in every situation. And if anything, it just shows how much AI is more intelligent than you, because you're coming up with this really stupid scenario. I did it again. Wow, it's hard not to use that word or any relevant word pertaining to it when it comes to this topic because of all the people that this relates to, apparently. But you can't make a bad argument and expect not to be mocked incessantly because it's just a bad idea. Like, if writing a text and sending it to somebody isn't stealing from the paper companies, stealing from the pencil and ink pen fans and stuff, and blot companies and sand companies and tree companies and the gas companies, the oil companies, the vehicle manufacturers, the light bulb manufacturers, the electronic bits factory, everything that makes literally every little piece and aspect that's used in the post office to get your thing from point A to point B. If it is not doing that, if freaking Morse code did not ruin sending letters, then it's not that big of a deal. It's just another method, another way, and another means to do something that could be helpful. They're not saying you need to fire all the post office people. The post office isn't firing the post office people. Like, it's not happening. They still exist because the people still want to send things through the mail. We've got other companies that compete with the post office. Freaking, you got FedEx, you got DHL, you got freaking UPS or USPS. No, UPS. USPS is the stuff. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, you know what I mean. You have all these people, they're not taking the jobs from everybody else. That's just not happening. So why are we freaking out about this? If you think somebody's going to steal your job as an artist or your job as a musician, you weren't getting hired to begin with. Nobody could afford you. Nobody wanted you. Nobody thought your talent was that worthiness of them to pay you money for it. They could probably find somebody else, like a bum on the street, and say, you make this for me and I'll give you $10. Boom, that person does that, they get $10. They're not using you because all you do is piss and moan about it. You're going to complain about it either way. Why did this have to be a rant? Why did this thing have to be a topic to begin with? I don't know. We shouldn't be here to begin with. This should be obvious. If you don't want AI in your games, don't buy those games. If you think it's going to change every job in the industry, maybe eventually it will. But that's going to be any other form of technology that has overpowered whatever the current standard was. Horses got replaced by cars. Are you stealing the horses' gerbs? Like, what innovation are you gonna like eventually just say, yeah, we could go to the stars, but if you steal our gerbs on Earth, just for all the people who cry about progress, eventually progress will leave what progress you think you made behind to advance. That includes your ideas of culture, that includes your ideas of how things be done, the way things ought to be, all that kind of stuff. All that will just dissipate because progress will march forward right past it. Progress is not what you do now that eventually holds on later on. It doesn't do that. It's going to literally walk right by it and say, I'm not going to care about what you did because I'm going to move forward because progress. And eventually things will come full round circle and we'll be right back to where we were in the olden times. Everything's going to operate a particular way. And you're not going to like it because you don't like that kind of progress because it's not your kind of progress. That's how that works. So, rant over. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, or at least me being angry at everything, which is rare. But, I mean, hey, it happens, I suppose. So, thanks everybody for sticking around if you stuck around this long. I wasn't planning on making this very long. I was like, let's make this in 15 minutes. Obviously, with me being upset about it, that wasn't going to happen. So I'm just glad you stuck around as long as you did. Please leave a comment if you agree or disagree. It's fine. I'm not going to crucify you if you disagree. It's fine. You're wrong, but it's fine. But if you could like, comment, subscribe, share, everything like that, that'd be most appreciated. And I hope you guys have a great day, great night, whatever it is, wherever you are. Check the description for socials to follow on Twitter/X. Also check for the description in the socials for the Discord, so you can come hang out with me in the Discord, look at memes, play video games, chat, talk about pop culture, live stream video games, all that kind of stuff. It's great. And also check the content creators, or I guess first, content creators. I have a list of them down below that I think you might enjoy if you check them out. So check them out. Also follow me on Critic Lists. That's the newest thing. And I'm trying to brace myself for all the reviews I'm going to be making when video games become a part of that. So look forward to that. Also check out some businesses that are on our corner of the internet. You guys might think they're really cool. So thanks everybody for sticking around, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, my friends, walk in the light.